picture a cold, totally windowless archives room.
Right.
The only sound is just the low, relentless hum of those fluorescent lights overhead. And you walk past rows of endless gray shelving until you find it.
The file cabinet.
Exactly. A massive, dusty, completely forgotten steel file cabinet. It's
Right.
just been sitting there for years. I mean, maybe even decades. You reach out, grab that cold metal handle, and pull.
Yeah.
With this heavy metal screech, the drawer slides open, and staring back at you, you aren't just papers. You're looking at secrets, fabricated alibis, devastated lives, all just waiting in the dark for someone to finally read them.
It's a heavy thought.
It really is. Today, we are looking at the legal tool that forces those steel drawers open. We're doing a deep dive into the Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA.
And we really need to emphasize what a FOIA request actually entails, because this is not a simple email where you ask a police department to just nicely summarize a case for you.
Right, it's not a Wikipedia summary.
No, not at all. It is a legal battering ram. When you file a FOIA request, you are demanding to see the original, unedited police records, the raw notes, the crime scene logs.
All the dirty laundry.
Exactly. The forensic lab requests that were either approved or in some cases mysteriously denied. It is a grueling bureaucratic process. I mean, you often have to fight through government lawyers and appeals.
Yeah, and you get pages just covered in heavy black redaction marker just to get a single document.
Exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to me, successfully pulling an FOIA file is, well, it's like walking into what looks like a pristine, perfectly clean hotel room and then flicking on a heavy-duty ultraviolet light.
Oh, wow. That's a vivid image.
Right. Suddenly you aren't looking at a clean room anymore. The invisible skeins, the wiped-away fingerprints, the hidden truth, they are all glowing right in front of your face.
Yeah, you can't unsee it.
Exactly. And we are going to examine 3 distinct, truly chilling mysteries today, where the simple act of pulling the files fundamentally altered the entire investigation.
What's fascinating here is that FOIA completely shifts the balance of power. Normally, the authorities hold all the cards.
Right, they control the narrative.
They do. They investigate, they tell the public a story, and the public just has to accept that narrative as objective truth. But a FOIA request forces the system to show its work.
And sometimes the math doesn't add up.
It really doesn't. As we'll see in these specific cases, when the system is forced to show its work, it sometimes reveals that the people in charge have failed terribly.
Yeah.
Let's start by looking at a case where the file actually protected a wealth of shocking evidence that the public never even knew existed.
Yeah, let's travel back to June 26, 1981. We are in rural Idaho. It is a beautiful, deeply humid summer day. 22-year-old college student Kristen David sets off on a 30-mile bike ride.
Just a normal afternoon.
Right. She's going down Highway 95, traveling from Moscow, Idaho, to Lewiston. And if you picture this stretch of highway, it's mostly downhill, it's scenic.
Very picturesque.
It is. It's an easy breezy ride for a young, active woman just enjoying the summer weather. But she never made it home.
And the timeline of that afternoon is incredibly ominous, mostly because of what the eyewitnesses reported.
Right. People actually saw her.
They did. Multiple people driving along Highway 95 actually remembered seeing Kristen riding her bike. But some of those witnesses reported seeing a shadow to her sunny afternoon.
The van.
Yes. A brown van with organ plates, specifically, plates ending in 37 or 737.
That is so specific.
It is. They described the driver as a bearded man. And most terrifying of all, one witness reported seeing a scene that honestly haunts this case to this day.
Yeah.
He saw Kristen loading her bicycle into the back of that exact brown van.
Which completely shifts the atmosphere from a standard missing persons case to an act of abduction.
Absolutely.
So a little over a week goes by. It's July 4th, Independence Day. A fisherman is out on the Snake River just looking for a quiet place to cast a line when he spots something bobbing in the current.
Just terrible.
Black garbage bags, 5 of them in total. And inside those bags are Kristen's remains.
The forensic details of that discovery are grim, but they are absolutely crucial for understanding the profile of the killer.
Right.
The dismemberment of her body was described by medical examiners as almost surgical.
It wasn't rushed.
No, it wasn't haphazard at all. It was precise and highly methodical. Furthermore, there was this incredibly eerie, calculated detail.
The newspapers.
Yes. The remains were carefully wrapped in old newspapers dating back to April 1981 before being placed in the bags.
That implies the killer didn't commit this crime in a panic, on the side of the highway or deep in the woods.
Exactly.
They had a secure location, they had a place where they could take their time with absolute privacy and access to months-old newspapers.
Precisely. Behavioral analysts profiled the killer as highly intelligent, highly organized, and likely narcissistic.
Which fits a certain type of profile.
It does. And for decades, because of the brutal and methodical nature of the crime, Kristen's case was quietly lumped in with the victims of a suspected Pacific Northwest serial killer.
The Lewiston Clark Valley murders, right?
Exactly. It became a convenient narrative for law enforcement. I mean, a serial killer is a terrifying boogeyman, but practically speaking, it gives the department a reason why a case is so hard to crack.
But that serial killer narrative gets completely upended when the original case files are pulled from the archives through a FOIA request.
It totally changed everything.
Imagine you're a citizen reading this FOIA release. You turn the page, expecting to find another dead end or a vague suspect profile, and suddenly you are staring at a forensic lab report for a bloody hotel room you've never even heard of.
It's jarring.
It is. Now, we are keeping some of the detailed autopsy and injury reports we found confidential to protect the active case, but we absolutely must talk about the bombshell location hiding in these documents.
Yeah, buried deep in that FOIA release was detailed documentation of a potential completely forgotten crime scene at a place called the Sacagawea Lodge.
Unbelievable.
According to the original police files, a housekeeper at the lodge had reported finding a blood-soaked bath towel, a bloody suitcase stand, and human hair in one of the rooms.
The hair.
When that hair was forensically tested back in the day, it was found to be consistent with Kristen's.
And the most incredible part, the room where all this bloody evidence was found was rented to a man who gave the name Pete Madsen.
Which is almost certainly a fake name.
Right.
It was an alias that led investigators down a massive rabbit hole that eventually just faded into obscurity.
So what does this all mean? I have to push back on the official timeline here.
Yeah.
If the police possessed a blood-soaked towel, a bloody piece of furniture, a specific hotel room, and a suspect's alias, how on earth did this case go cold?
That's a great question.
Was the whole serial killer narrative just an incredibly easy way for the department to write off a difficult, messy investigation? It's much easier to blame a phantom serial killer than to track down a ghost named Pete Madsen.
It's a very valid challenge, and it really speaks to the psychology of police tunnel vision. It is incredibly easy for investigators to succumb to this, especially when a notorious serial killer is known to be operating in the exact same geographic area.
Right, they see what they want to see.
Exactly. You have an unsolved, gruesome murder, and you have a famous boogeyman nearby. The human brain naturally wants to connect those dots.
Makes sense.
But what the FOIA request proved in this instance is that this case is absolutely not a dead end. The release of this file confirmed that critical, physical evidence still exists in an evidence locker somewhere.
Wow.
The investigation isn't just a cold, dusty folder. Investigators are actively working it today. FOIA brought transparency, proving that the answers likely lie not with a famous serial killer, but with whoever rented that room under the name Pete Madsen.
Finding a file full of active ignored evidence is one thing, but, it makes a dark sort of sense. Sometimes clues just get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, human error.
Right. But what happens when the evidence isn't just ignored, but completely ceases to exist? We need to look at the emotional toll of one family being struck by lightning twice.
The story of the Altman family is one of the most somber, frustrating, and scientifically baffling cases you will ever encounter in the realm of forensic investigation.
The nightmare starts in 1984. 21-year-old Stephen Altman is just hanging out, a young guy making plans for his future. He tells his friends, "I'll be right back."
But he doesn't.
He doesn't come back. Later that night, his body is found hanging from a heavy crane hoist inside his stepfather Don's Chicago workshop.
Such a brutal scene.
Yeah. The police arrive, they take a look at the scene, and they quickly rule it a suicide.
Then we fast forward 12 years to 1996. Stephen's mother, Mary Ann Hayes, has recently separated from that exact same stepfather, Don.
Okay, already a red flag.
Big red flag. By all accounts, Mary Ann is excited about her future. She's actively fixing up a brand new condo, preparing for a fresh chapter in her life.
She wasn't acting like someone who was suicidal.
Not at all. But one afternoon, she is found dead in her bedroom. The scene shows an extension cord wrapped around her neck.
God.
And just like her son, 12 years prior, the medical examiner rules it a suicide. Specifically, suicide by self-strangulation.
Two bizarre suicides, 12 years apart, both intimately connected to the exact same family dynamic. Enter Robin Altman.
Right.
She is Stephen's sister and Marianne's daughter, and she never, for one single second, bought the official story of her family's demise. So in 2013, she takes matters into her own hands.
Which is so brave.
It is. She files FOIA requests for both of her family members' cases.
She wanted to see the math. She wanted to look at the forensic logic and see exactly how the police arrived at these conclusions that defied everything she fundamentally knew about her mother and her brother.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Think about what it physically looks like to receive a FOIA response.
It takes forever.
Yeah, you wait months, you battle clerks, you finally get an envelope in the mail from the Chicago Police Department regarding her brother Stephen's 1984 violent death. She opens it, and she gets nothing.
Nothing at all.
And I don't mean a heavily redacted file covered in black ink. I mean absolutely nothing. No investigative file, no witness interviews, no crime scene photos, no forensic reports.
It's chilling.
A young man dies violently hanging from a crane on a commercial business property, and there is zero documentation.
Which is basically impossible.
Right. To me, pulling a FOIA and finding an empty folder is like walking into a crime scene that has been inexplicably bleached clean from floor to ceiling. Finding 0 pages of documentation is somehow louder and vastly more suspicious than finding 1,000 pages.
This raises an important question about the fundamental integrity of our record keeping. An absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. It is undeniable evidence of a systemic failure.
Exactly.
But if Stephen's 1984 file was a horrifying void, Marianne's 1996 file from the Northfield Police Department was the exact opposite.
It was huge, right?
It was a massive, heavy file, bursting with untouched evidence. And as Robin sat there reading through the pages, detailing her mother's death, the nightmare deepened.
Oh, man.
She found her own police interview transcribed in the file, and it completely contradicted what she had actually said to the detectives in the room that day.
Wait, really? They actively changed her words in the official transcript to fit their suicide narrative.
That is what the document strongly suggests.
That is insane.
But the manipulation of testimony was just the tip of the iceberg.
Right in that file, Robin discovers what physical evidence had just been sitting in a cardboard box in an evidence room for decades.
Just gathering dust.
Yeah. They had the actual extension cord used in the strangulation. They had Marianne's broken fingernail, which clearly had blood on it. And they had vaginal swabs taken during the autopsy that contained unknown male DNA.
All of it completely, totally untested.
How does that even happen?
Because the moment a lead detective walks into a bedroom, looks at a cord, and labels a death as suicide, the massive machinery of forensic science grinds to a complete halt.
It just stops.
Yes. The crime lab actually left a note in the file, recommending that investigators compare that unknown male DNA to a potential suspect, but the detectives just ignored it.
Until Robin forced their hand. Armed with this FOIA bombshell, she went back to the police in 2018 and demanded they reopen the case.
And they actually did.
They did. They tested the DNA on the swabs, and guess what? The genetic profile was still there. The police even brought in a suspect. They sat him down and asked him for a DNA sample to compare against the swabs.
And he agreed.
He initially agreed, then immediately lawyered up and refused to provide his DNA. And what did the police do? They closed the case again.
Unbelievable. This entire saga demands we look at the actual physics of how we classify deaths in this country.
Yeah, let's get into that.
After the FOIA release, independent forensic pathologists reviewed Marianne's original autopsy. They did not mince words. They called the original investigation a cataclysmic failure.
Wow.
We need to talk about the mechanics of self-strangulation. When a human body is deprived of oxygen, the autonomic nervous system violently kicks in.
It's an involuntary reaction.
Exactly. It is a primal survival instinct. If you are strangling yourself with a simple extension cord, the moment you lose consciousness, your voluntary muscles relax. Your hands would simply let go of the cord.
The tension would immediately release, and blood flow would resume.
Exactly the biological reality. Without some sort of complex locking mechanism, a knot or a tie-off point to hold the tension of the cord after the person passes out, suicide by self-strangulation with a loose cord is practically a mechanical and physiological impossibility.
So it literally could not have been a suicide.
The physics of the bedroom scene did not match a suicide. This is what forensic experts refer to as a hidden homicide.
A staged scene.
Yes. A murder deliberately staged by the killer to look like a suicide, relying on lazy police work to serve as their ultimate alibi. And without Robin filing that single legal document, Marianne's death would have remained an unquestioned statistic.
Finding an empty folder in 1984 is horrifying, but paper is easy to lose or destroy.
True.
But when you fast forward to the digital age, losing evidence requires an entirely different kind of blindness. Which brings us to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge in Washington state on March 20th, 2020.
A date that carries its own heavy atmosphere.
Yeah, it really does.
This was the exact moment the entire world was shutting down due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The streets were completely empty. There was this eerie, apocalyptic silence covering the entire country.
Right in the middle of that lockdown night, a Washington state trooper is patrolling the massive expanse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. He comes across a wrecked minivan abandoned on the roadway.
Just sitting there.
Yeah. All four doors are wide open to the wind. The passenger side windows are completely shattered, and there is thick, broken safety glass covering the pavement.
And someone was there, right?
Yeah, standing near this wrecked, empty van is a strange man named Demetrius Jackson. He's just standing on a bridge in a global lockdown, holding a beer.
Bizarre.
Completely. And when the trooper questions him, his story keeps wildly changing about how he got the van from a woman named Gwen.
That woman was Gwen Hasselquist, a mother of two. And the digital timeline of her disappearance that night is where the FOIA documents really start to unravel the official police narrative.
The timeline is wild.
It is. According to a Ring doorbell camera at her home, Gwen left her house at 10:19 p.m. The wrecked van was found on the bridge at 12:20 a.m.
But the drive from her house to the Tacoma Narrows Bridge only takes 20 minutes.
Right?
Where was Gwen and where was that minivan for the other hour and 40 minutes?
A glaring, massive gap in the timeline. At 2 a.m., Gwen's husband, Eric, calls 911 to report her missing.
And then they find her.
The very next afternoon, Gwen's body is found washed up in the Puget Sound, a full 7 miles away from the bridge. The autopsy reveals she is missing a tooth, she has multiple severe rib fractures, and the toxicology report shows a significant amount of the anxiety medication clonazepam in her system.
So how did they rule it?
The medical examiner looks at the scene, looks at the anxiety meds, factors in the stress of the pandemic, and rules her death a suicide by jumping off the bridge.
Case closed. Neatly wrapped up.
So they thought.
Until the FOIA files were pulled by independent investigators. And this is where the blind spots become so obvious they almost glow in the dark. Let's start with the physical crash scene. The police officially stated the van hit the guardrail on the bridge.
But when we look at the FOIA photos, there are dozens of pictures of the damaged van, but zero photos of the guardrail it supposedly hit.
No.
No paint transfer, no impact points, no scraped metal.
Wait, pause right there. Forensic Photography 101 dictates you shoot the impact point. If there's no paint transfer on the guardrail, the entire physical logic of the scene collapses. If the van didn't hit the guardrail hard enough to leave paint, how did the physical impact shatter the passenger windows and cover the road in glass? Are you saying the van was actually wrecked somewhere else entirely before it was driven to the bridge and dumped?
The lack of photographic evidence makes that a highly probable theory.
That's terrifying.
And the missing evidence didn't stop at the photographs. When investigators tried to fill in that missing hour and 40 minutes in the timeline, they hit walls. But they were walls they seemingly accepted far too easily.
Like what?
Well, they learned that the bridge traffic cameras were live feed only. Nothing was saved to a server.
But what about the toll booths? I mean, you have to pay to cross that bridge, and those booths have high-definition cameras that take pictures of every single windshield and license plate.
They do. But the toll booth footage, which could have definitively proved who was actually driving the van onto the bridge, was deemed not public record.
You're kidding me.
No. This happens often when state infrastructure relies on third-party private vendors for surveillance. The private company claims proprietary exemptions, the state claims privacy shielding, and suddenly, crucial video evidence is hidden behind a wall of corporate red tape.
And the police just gave up.
The investigators simply abandoned that avenue.
But here is the one detail that completely breaks my brain. The police built their entire initial timeline heavily on that Ring doorbell footage provided by Gwen's husband, Eric, showing her leaving the house.
Right, the 10:19 p.m. video.
Yeah, but the FOIA files revealed that the video file Eric provided had no embedded timestamp on the screen.
Which is a massive oversight.
And when the police finally went back and asked Eric for the original full video file from the cloud, he claimed he'd already deleted it. And the police never even tried to secure it with a search warrant, let me guess. They had already decided she jumped, so anything that didn't neatly fit that story, like the missing hour or the deleted footage, was just subconsciously discarded as irrelevant data.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what we are seeing here is textbook confirmation bias.
It really is.
Think of confirmation bias like shooting an arrow into a blank wall, walking up to it, and then painting a bullseye around wherever the arrow landed.
That is a great way to put it.
The investigators walked into a highly stressful, unprecedented situation, a global pandemic shutdown. They found a woman who had anxiety medication in her system. They saw a bridge. They shot their arrow, and they immediately painted the bullseye of a suicide.
Because it's the easiest answer.
Exactly. Once that decision was locked in, they subconsciously ignored the shattered glass that was miles outside their target. They ignored the missing hour and 40 minutes, and they completely brushed off the deleted timestamp-less footage. FOIA proved that they didn't investigate a mystery. They just documented a predetermined conclusion.
It's just staggering. When you put these three cases together, Kristen David's bloody hotel room, Marianne Hayes' untested DNA, and Gwen Hasselquist's deleted timeline, you really start to view those massive steel file cabinets in police basements differently.
You absolutely do, because it reminds us that the truth isn't always buried under some grand cinematic conspiracy orchestrated by shadowy figures in smoke-filled rooms.
Right. It's not a movie.
No. More often than not, the truth is just gathering dust in a manila folder, sitting in a damp precinct basement, simply waiting for someone to care enough to ask the right question. The criminal justice system is made of people, and people have deep-seated biases, they get tired, they take the path of least resistance, and they make catastrophic mistakes.
And that is exactly why the Freedom of Information Act is so unbelievably essential. I want to remind you, listening right now, this legal tool belongs to you.
It's your right.
It is your right as a citizen to hold these agencies accountable, to demand they show their work, and to turn on that ultraviolet light to see what was left behind in the room.
Knowledge is only powerful when it's applied. These documents are public records. They are the public's fundamental right to know. I want you to think about the unsolved mysteries, the tragic accidents, or the sudden disappearances that have happened in your own hometown.
They're everywhere.
What dark secrets, what untested DNA swabs, or what completely empty, bleached clean folders might be sitting in a heavy metal file cabinet just a few miles from where you are sitting right now, just waiting for a simple piece of paper to drag them out of the dark.
All it takes is someone willing to pull the handle on that dusty steel drawer.